All right, hello. Welcome to FA 105 Intro to Photo. My name's Nate Ely. You can call me Nate. Um, Obviously, we're going to be doing this whole course remotely, so I'm going to be doing a lot of recorded videos. Um, and obviously, we're also going to be looking at a much shorter timeline to cover this class. So we're going to cover a slightly abridged version of the semester-long course, which means it's going to be kind of an intense month of cramming all of this content into only a couple of weeks. But I really don't want to give you guys less of an experience than what normal students would get over the course of a semester. So prepare yourselves for that. I'm pretty easygoing. If you have questions, if you have comments, um, obviously being remote and being in a COVID-19 situation, we're going to be doing whatever I can to accommodate you guys. So please feel free to reach out to me. Feel free to communicate. We've already been emailing back and forth about the cameras. I wanted to make a quick video here just to talk about the syllabus, talk a little bit about the course, and give you guys a little bit more information. So um, first of all, I apologize that things aren't immediately off and running. I literally did not know whether we were going to run this class or not until yesterday. So I apologize for that. And obviously, I have some of this material ready to go online, but basically, over this next week, I'm going to be putting as much stuff online ahead of time as humanly possible. So you guys are going to have as much of the course material right off from the beginning um, as I can provide for you. So let's get into the syllabus a little bit here. This is a project-based course. There's three main projects that's going to make up 75% of your grade. Basically, we're going to do one project a week, starting not this week, but next week. So you guys have a little bit of time to figure out cameras. We'll talk about cameras in a little bit. Basically, we're going to cover all of the basics of how to use a digital camera. Part of the reason why I want you guys to try to get a DSLR or something that has manual camera settings is because understanding how to balance exposure and how to use aperture, shutter speed, and ISO is really the foundation of all photography. So if you learn that from the beginning, you can go and you can shoot film. You could go and get a 4x5 large format camera. You can shoot on anything if you understand how to control exposure and how to control the look of your image through aperture, shutter speed, and ISO. That's what photography is all about. So we're going to cover those basics. We're going to cover how to shoot in camera raw. This is really like the standard for doing digital photography today, is shooting in camera raw. And this will allow you, we're going to talk about Bridge, and we're going to use Bridge in Photoshop a little bit, mostly Bridge, because Bridge is supposedly free, and you can use it after we're done with class and after you're done with school and you continue to do photography. You should be able to get a free version of Bridge, which you can do, 80 to 90% of digital photography edits, unless you want to really get into wild stuff with Photoshop. You can do a lot with Bridge and Camera Raw. So that's what we're really going to focus on. Beyond that, one of my goals is really to challenge our current use and understanding of photography. So, everybody, you guys are already completely familiar with photography. I'm sure you're all using cell phone cameras. It's not a foreign thing. So a lot of the goal for the class is going to be getting outside of the headspace that we already have, right? The Karate Kid cup is already full. So the goal is going to be to empty the cup and kind of restart the thought process with how we use photography, how we engage with it, what is its nature as an artistic medium. So it's not going to be just how to shoot a digital photograph. I don't think digital photography is really that hard. If you learn Camera Raw, you have a decent digital camera, and you have some semblance of what you're doing, it's really not that hard to go out and make a nice picture. If that's the end goal, is just making something that looks pretty, that's really not that hard to do. So going beyond that, I really want to push you guys to try to think differently about what you can do with a camera, what is the nature of photography, and how do you talk about and write about your stuff. Because I think that's way, way harder, is to talk about photography, to talk about your own photography in really meaningful ways. So those are going to be some of the goals for the class. By the end of the term, the end of the month, in a couple weeks, you guys will understand how to run a digital camera, how to combine ISO, aperture, and shutter speed, how to control depth of field and motion with these 3 settings. So they do more than just control the brightness of your image. We'll talk about some of these different file formats. We'll talk very briefly about color space, just making sure we're working in the right one. I'll give you guys a basic workflow for importing, editing, and exporting images using Bridge and maybe a little bit of Photoshop. We probably won't talk much about image resolution. We'll talk a little bit about histograms. We'll talk a little bit about non-destructive editing. This is, again, something that you want to be doing for long-term storage of photos. It might not be super important to you guys. A big benefit of using Camera Raw is that you're not messing with the data that comes off of the camera, so you can always go back and make changes. So destructive editing would be editing stuff that you can't go back and change. So we want to try to avoid that. Camera profile, calibration, this goes back to color space. We'll briefly talk about metadata. Again, a lot of this is going to be super important. We will talk about composition. So I'll talk a little bit more about this when we look at the schedule, which is obviously the schedule is going to happen very quickly, right? So basically there will be a module where we're going to, talk through some compositional basics. Required materials for the course, as I've kind of already mentioned, a digital camera, mirrorless or SLR, that has the ability to manually adjust shutter speed and aperture. And I highly advise you guys to have something that will shoot in RAW. You will also need an SD card, and we'll need some way to get the images off of the camera. So you can either get a card reader. If your laptop has an SD card reader in it, that's awesome. Another easy way, if the camera, most DSLRs will have a mini USB port, and so you can plug the camera directly into your computer using a mini USB plug-in wire to retrieve the images off the card. I don't have it mentioned here. You guys are going to get Adobe CC access. I just have to give your names and emails to IT, and they'll set you up with Adobe CC. So obviously you need to have a computer that you're going to be able to access the course material through, and B, that you're going to be able to download and run Adobe CC Bridge at the very least. Bridge and Photoshop are the 2 that we'll be using. So you guys will be getting access to CC in a couple of days. Policies and expectations. Our attendance and participation. So obviously the class is going to be done remotely. The format that I'm shooting for is basically I'm going to provide videos to you guys ahead of time as I can make them. And you're going to be able to watch them in your own time. And then I would really like to have some kind of scheduled weekly meeting. I'll be sharing some sort of Google form response thing to try to figure out what schedule is going to work best for you guys. Right now, there's only 5 students in this class, so we should be able to find a couple hours a week to set aside to plan on meeting. So you'll have a video ahead of time, and then we'll have an hour or 2 of scheduled meeting time where we can kind of convene as a group and talk about questions you might have, if I need to go over something, if I need to address something in terms of the software that doesn't make sense from the video. if we want to talk about the projects, just some kind of weekly check-in to cover questions you might have and to go a little bit more in detail and to just have some kind of discussion community. All of the critique and sharing of work is going to happen on Canvas. So by work, I mean your work. You're going to share your photographs. There'll be more information on what I want for each project when the projects are assigned. But basically, you're going to make a discussion post with your images and a short blurb that kind of discusses what your intention was, what your idea was, and then everybody's going to go through and comment on everybody else's work. So this is kind of how we're gauging participation and attendance. So this part of the class is going to be mandatory and will be highly acknowledged. So if you're somebody who just doesn't comment on anybody else's work for the entire course of this class, you know, that's gonna impact your grade via participation because you're not really participating, right? So this is a studio class, and studio classes will function best when there is a sense of community. So collectively, especially because there's a small group of us, the more that you guys put into the class in terms of creating meaningful discussions and critiques about each other's work, and you know what you write about your own work, what ideas you put into your own work, and what you share with the class in terms of commenting on their stuff, the more everybody's going to get out of it, right? So commenting cool, thumbs up on somebody's project doesn't really tell them anything about their work, doesn't really help them grow, okay? Student conduct, I don't really need to mention this, I don't think. Student services, again, with everything going on, the circumstances, you know, I don't know what you guys are doing for work, what your schedules are like. We're going to be super accommodating about doing whatever I can to make sure that you guys get a full experience out of the class, okay? So feel free to reach out to me, let me know what's going on. If you need extra time to get stuff done, you know, we don't have a ton of time to work on stuff for the class, so the schedules has to be kind of rigorous. But you know, if you need extra time, if you need accommodations made, let me know. We'll figure something out, okay? So the coursework. There's going to be 3 projects and maybe 1 short exercise before project 1, if we have time to squeeze it in. Overviews for the project are going to be posted on Canvas. Hopefully by the end of the day today, I'm going to rewrite everything for the projects and put them all online, so you will know exactly what is going to be due and when it's going to be due for the whole semester by the end of the day today, hopefully. Stuff is going to be due Sundays at midnight, the week that they're due, and that's going to be for all projects. So it's just, you know, you don't need to try to keep dates in your head in terms of when stuff is due. You know, basically the week's work will be due at the end of the week, Sunday at midnight. For the 3 projects, there's going to be a week-wide window for comments and critique for everybody's work, and that's going to be live for an entire week following the midnight that project is due. So this is just, you know, to keep you guys up to date, right? A week after class ends, if we're commenting on people's stuff, right, it doesn't really help them. So the idea is to get comments in on other people's work as quickly as possible, which is supposed to, you know, help inform their work for the next project, right? So there's 3 projects. Basically, I'll tell you a little bit about them right now. The first project is a photo walk. This is basically to kind of help you learn how to use the camera and to start the process of looking at stuff differently. So that's project 1, it's a photo walk. The second project is abstract every day. So we're going to be looking at stuff in terms of its visual quality rather than its thingness, what it is. So making visual photographs versus descriptive photographs. So rather than photographing a tree because it's a tree, we're looking at the visual qualities of the tree. So what is its form? What is its texture? What is its shape? Are there ways we compare these different things against one another? So thinking visually versus descriptively is all what project 2 is about. And then the last project is going to be an image series project. So you're basically going to decide on some sort of theme or idea that you're going to articulate throughout the course of all of your projects, or excuse me, all the images for that project. So image series project will be the last one. So you're going to pick an idea and then you're going to focus on it. It can be whatever you want. And all of these projects are super, super open-ended, okay? This is on purpose to allow you guys to take photographs of whatever interests you. So there's 3 projects, and then in addition to those 3 projects, there's going to be a 1.5-page response to John Sarkowski, The Photographer's Eye. I'll be assigning this by the end of the day today, and I want this to be completed by next week. So it's super simple. I'll talk more about Photographer's Eye when I email you guys about it and when I make the assignment on Canvas. Basically, this is an introduction. It's like 7 pages long. It's broken into segments that each kind of, Sarkowski was the director of photography at the Museum of Modern Art. He's kind of a big figure in terms of photo theory. The Photographer's Eye is basically his definition of the essential characteristics of photographs. So this is a great introduction to starting to think differently about the unique characteristics of photography as a fine art medium. For each project, I'm going to ask you guys to have a paragraph, 3 or 4 sentences of writing that describe what you were trying to do for that project. Because they're so open, what was your approach for doing each project? And last one is not going to be a presentation. Basically, obviously it's not going to be timed, but you're going to make a PowerPoint or Google slide, quote unquote, presentation of a photographer. So I'm going to give you guys a list of people. You're going to be able to go and look at them. If there's photographers that you already know and you like and you want to talk about them, you can do that. But basically, you're going to go and do a little bit of research about photographers. What do they do? What is their photography like? What is their approach to photography? And you're going to make a little slide deck, and you're just going to write me 1 page that kind of describes who this photographer is, what their work is like, and kind of just present some of their photographs and some of the ideas. And this is basically just for you to start thinking about what kind of photography interests you. So you're going to have to do a little bit of research in terms of looking at different photographers and finding somebody that's interesting to you, and then putting some sort of little slide deck together and a paragraph of text that describes who this person is, and sharing that with the rest of the class. So that's basically what the coursework is going to be. It's going to be a little bit intense for only a month long, but we'll get through it. All projects are going to be basically the entire process I'm looking at. I'm not just interested in, the completed 6 images. All of the projects are going to have 6 images. That's kind of the final number that we're looking at least 6 images. But I'm really interested in the whole process. So ongoing communication is going to be important. The ideas that you have, one of the things that I kind of really push for is experimentation and going out on a limb and trying new things. So yes, I want technically nice pictures at the end of each project, but beyond that, I really want to see experimentation, development of ideas, challenging yourself, going out on a limb, trying new things. So not just the final form, but the entire process is really what I'm asking for. And this is why I want some kind of project statement that briefly introduces what you were trying to do with each project, okay? So the grade breakdown, very simple. 75% of your grade comes from the projects, 25% for each project. You have 12.5% for the other assignments, and then 12.5% from participation. So comments and critique on other people's work. Okay, and that's it. That's all the coursework that's going to be. So I believe this is totally manageable over the course of a month to do this, and especially I'm going to give you the projects ahead of time, so you should be able to start thinking about stuff. And I don't want you guys to get too far ahead, especially before I talk about composition, but you can start working on some of this stuff, as soon as you have it. So, I mean, here's the schedule, right? We're only here for a month. The class is officially over on the 14th, but my final grades are not due to Duville until the 21st. So we can squeak an extra week into the class and give you 6 extra days to finish the final project. So the last project I'm going to accept up to the 20th. Basically, we are right here. I'm introducing the class. This week, we need to worry about cameras and gear and making sure you guys get access and download Adobe CC. I'll be assigning these 2 things at the end of the day. And then next week, I will be sharing a video lecture that covers camera basics, that talks about aperture, shutter speed, and ISO, that introduces some of the other settings on your cameras. And then I'm assuming that we're going to have some kind of meeting where we're all kind of video chatting with our cameras. Typically it helps when students bring their cameras into class, and then I can take the camera and I can help them figure out what controls do what. Obviously, we will not have that luxury being online. So I'm assuming we're going to have some kind of, if a scheduled meeting time doesn't work for you guys, there will be 100% some kind of scheduled office hours, or I'll be available by appointment to have some kind of one-on-one video meeting where we can, quote unquote, face-to-face video chat and handle stuff like camera settings and controls and figuring that stuff out. So next week, we're going to introduce the basics. We're going to introduce Adobe Bridge and Camera Raw. I'm going to give you the basic workflow for how to download images off your camera, organize them, do basic edits, and then export them and turn them into Canvas. So I'll make a demonstration video that covers all of that. And I will introduce Project 1. I mean, I'm going to give you guys the information for all of these projects well in advance. So, well before the 24th, you're going to have Project 1 so you can start working on it. Basically, I'm going to try to give you as much of this information as quickly and as early as I can. As I mentioned in the email I sent, I'm still grading stuff from spring. I literally found out yesterday that we were actually going to be running this class. So it's going to take me a couple of days to get everything put online for you, but you should have everything ahead of time. So by the end of May, by the 31st, we want to have Project 1 due. Should be very simple. The projects are very simple. Okay, they're really not. I'm not asking for incredibly complicated projects for these. So basically, starting next week, we're going to be talking about the basics. We're going to be covering Adobe Bridge and the workflow that you guys are going to use. The week after that, I'm going to talk about composition and design. Hopefully that will help you think about the second project. With each one of these projects too, by the way, I'll have some kind of 15-minute video that talks about the project, similar to this that we're doing right here, and some examples of how you can start to approach these. So I'm not just kind of, throwing you guys out there with no guidance. So there will be a little video. And then the last week, basically, I will make a longer video that explains the last project, that talks about different image series, different ways you can think about creating a set of images that work together. And for that project, I'm going to ask you guys to either email or create a discussion post that addresses what you want to do, so we can have a little bit of development and back and forth about what is your approach going to be for the project and what are the best ways going to be to do that. So next week we'll talk about Adobe Bridge and Camera Raw. The week after I'll talk about Photoshop. And then the week after that I will do a very short demonstration for how you can lay out different, basically a really simple way to lay images out together. So rather than clicking through 6 different images, right, we're going to lay them out in a way that we're looking at all of them together. So the last project is really about developing an idea for a group of images that are going to function together as a group. So we'll talk about different ways we can lay images out on a page to make them work better as a group. And for that last project, you'll have, basically almost 2 whole weeks to work on it. And then the project 1 and project 2, you'll have about a week to work on them, depending on how you want to budget your time. So again, I'm going to do my best over the course of the next week while you guys are working on the non-camera related writing stuff. I think these 2 assignments are really good primers to thinking about photography as a fine art medium, and thinking a little bit more about specifically what kind of photography interests you, and looking at some different artists out there making work with cameras and with photography. So these are really going to be what you're going to be working on for the next week while I am recording all of the rest of the material and getting everything online for you. So you should be able to, if you follow this schedule, you're welcome to follow this schedule. If you want to jump ahead and watch all the videos and work on everything and turn everything in early, if you want to do that, you can do that. So keep an eye out. I'll be emailing you guys all kinds of information. I'm a big emailer. I check my email very often. Obviously, being online, it's going to be super important to stay on top of this work, stay on top of communicating with me back and forth, what you're doing, what you need, and we will figure it out as we go. Like I said, if we need to make combinations, if we need to make changes, whatever we need to do to make sure that you guys get a full experience is what we'll do. Really, what you're going to be missing out on compared to a semester-long in-class experience is sort of the work days. A lot of ongoing back and forth weekly work. I have whole classes that we spend nothing but students just work in the lab and I answer questions for them. So we're going to miss out on that a little bit, but as I said, I want to make sure that we are having some sort of, I'd like to do a scheduled weekly meeting. I'm going to send out as I mentioned, a little quiz thing to figure out if and when we can do a scheduled meeting. And if there is no way to do a scheduled meeting, I will have office hours at least once a week where I'm definitely will be available to meet via Zoom to help you, to talk about what you're doing, to help figure out something in Bridge if you can't figure out something with Bridge or whatever. So that's roughly how the class is going to run. If you guys have questions, if you have concerns, please feel free to email me and let me know. And keep an eye out for additional material that I'll be sharing with you, and especially the quiz that I'm going to send out for determining what times we can potentially meet during the week. Okay, so that's what I have for you right now. Stay tuned. There's going to be a lot more to come. I wanted to get some information in your hands as quickly as possible. So hopefully this helps you guys and you know what you're going to, you know what you've gotten yourself into for the next couple of weeks. Okay. All right. I can't wait to see what you guys come up with and talk with you soon. Okay.